Morning all. I thought I'd pick a rarer game today, which has a very neat tactical idea in it, and it's from one of the Armenian teams playing against the Philippines actually. And the Philippines have got a very strong team with Wesley Slow on board 1, Oliver Barbosa on board 2, so 3 GMs, Mark Paraga on board 3, and their board 4 is Oliver Dimakiling, who's an IM2428. Curiously, I was playing a Philippines GM last night called Rogelio Antonio on bullet. He's remarkably powerful on bullet, and he's got a higher FIDE rating. So sometimes I don't know if necessarily the highest FIDE rated players of particular countries are representing the teams, but the IM is born 1980, Antonio 1962. Maybe I don't know. Maybe he felt the IM was more energetic or something. But let's see. So the IM did play energetically with the black pieces against Sargissian, who's 2693, a much higher rated player and grandmaster. But let's see. So Gabriel Sargissian playing white kicks off with D4. Okay, Oliver plays knight F6. After C4 E6. Now after knight F3. Black plays very interestingly here. Funny enough, one of my teammates was scolded in the Hearts League for playing this move C5. It's the dynamic option, not the more solid option to play C5. There's more solid options like maybe just D5 or Bishop B4 check maybe. But at C5 we get this structure which is a bit unstable really. Of course, Tau could beat anyone with such structures, but potentially it's an unstable structure. If Black takes, we get a kind of Benoni, and if Black doesn't, well, we'll see. D6. Black didn't. He kept that tension in the centre, and in fact, Black's not going to fianchetto the bishop. After knight C3, he plays bishop E7. So, what is Black's strategy about here? He's even inviting, of course, E4 here. It's still possible for white, and E4 is played. Black castles, and now H3, which is against any exchange on D5 followed by bishop G4, which could form part of a dark square strategy from Black. Now a very energetic move here from Oliver Dimakiling. He plays B5, so it looks like a sort of mixture of Benko Gambit and something else now. But B5 is a common way of generating fast counterplay in many systems. Undermining that C4 pawn this pawn is often the pawn which is most easily underminable in a lot of positions out of D4. So C takes B5 and now A6, and white just supports B5 now. After rook E8, we see an interesting move which looks as though, white is not necessarily taking pride in maintaining a pawn on D5 here. He swaps it off. D takes E, so it's less of a liability there potentially. And also it's causing some congestion now for Black on that E file. So it's going to be more time to get to E4 here. On the other hand, after bishop takes E6, if Black can liberate, Black should have an active position. Bishop E2, and then we see C4, which, okay, it does release some dark squares a bit, and bishop E3 looks quite kind of logical in this respect. D5. Okay, so Black's playing very energetically, and his idea here is, one idea is bishop B4 to be annoying, to kind of damage white's pawn structure. Knight D4 is played, and this is really symbolic of what's going to happen later. The light square strategy and the tactics, I think, are very, very neat in this game after knight D4. So we see bishop B4 and white taking now on E6. After F takes E6, we have E takes D5. Okay, so D5 and E6 are constantly being attacked or captured on at the moment. A takes b5 is played in this position. So couldn't black have just taken on d5 here? Let's check this out actually. Quite a tense position here. If knight takes d5, okay, white can apparently just castle, and it looks a bit shaky. Let's go with knight takes c3, takes, bishop takes c3, b6. This pawn's very dangerous here. If b takes, bishop takes a1, b7, and all of a sudden this bishop, this rook has got a problem. So this leads to a big advantage to white. But let's go back here. Whoops, pardon me, overshot there. So in this position, we'd see knight takes d5. Any other alternatives? E takes d5. Does that fare any better? White can castle. White's got control of d4, so these pawns are not really that liberated. And now there's a startling tactic in this position. Knight takes d5. Bishop takes c4. d5 is a problem here. Queen b3, threatening queen takes b4. And now rook ad1, and d5 is going to be losing a piece. White's got a huge advantage. So there's a d5 undertone in this game, which is shown in echo variations, and we see in the main game continuation something very interesting as well. So we saw a takes b5, and now d takes e6. So how many captures on d5 and e6 are there in this game? But what we're left with is now a sort of tactical setting very soon. Queen a5, white castles. After bishop takes c3, okay, black's inflicted some damage and he's creating protected past a pawn in theory. But now the d5 strategy continues with this next move, bishop d4, undermining the defender of d5. Okay, knight c6, white takes on f6, and again d5 attacked. If you look at this game, virtually every single move is about d5 and e6. Bishop f3. So the light square strategy, this guy can be a menace now, this bishop on the light squares, as we're about to see. After rook a6, sorry, queen a6, it's a total disaster for black now, believe it or not. I would like to give you 10 seconds to pause the video and think what you do in this position. So 10 seconds starting from now. Okay, a light square combination, no coincidence. Everything's been occurring on light squares from white's perspective. It's all about being d5 and e6, but this combination is light square based. Rook takes a4. It's everything's dropping off on light squares. Look at all of black's pieces. They're about to be all on light squares in this position, if you look at them. Victimized. Queen takes a4, rook takes a4, bishop takes c6, and you might think, well, it's only a pawn. No, it's not just a pawn. Maybe actually, though, black blundered here. Maybe he made it a lot worse than it needed to be. He possibly protected the rook in the wrong way, actually. He played rook e8, and unfortunately white has a very strong move in this position. Can you guess it if I give you 10 seconds starting from now? Okay, white plays e7. He's just giving me a bishop up. He's giving me a bishop up here. He's just going to use this pawn as a decoy, for example, and a bishop up. Black resigned after e7. But the remarkable thing, it's a visual kind of sensation on this game actually on d5 and e6. If we rewind and look at the light square strategy, which led to the light square based combination, all about d5 and e6, and about white doesn't need necessarily a pawn on d5 nor on e4. His bishop can run rampant on these light squares later, so they don't have to be occupied by pawns. Black's playing this gambit, which is a bit risky, and we see this as Nimzo advocated, you don't need to control the center, occupy the center rather, with pawns. You can often give up your center for piece compensation, but the specific piece compensation is on the light squares here. And how many moves are on e6 and d5 here? So d e6, bishop e6, and then we saw bishop e3, but even this has implications for later undermining d5, as well as b6 being very dangerous later. So d5, and again knight d4 aiming for e6, aiming to weaken d5. So black's being continually undermined on e6 and d5 here. Knight takes e6, e takes d5, d takes e6 again. So white, after castling, black's got that past a pawn, but now the strategy continues. Bishop d4, and of course this is a disaster to take on e6. We have bishop c4, so knight c6, and then we have bishop f6 and bishop f3, and it's just very unpleasant here. In the game continuation, instead of queen a6, well, it's tricky. We might have an invasion to d7 soon. In this position, what else was there? Let's have a quick look. If rook a8 would just give up the a pawn, though, it's not something black was that keen on doing, and c4 is going to be loose. And if he doesn't play that, and bishop d5 is unpleasant here, or rook a4. So in the game continuation, we saw this combination, which was made worse with I suspect it's made worse here with black protecting the rooks in the wrong way. So could he have played rook a8? Rook a8 is not so bad. Yes, rook e7 crunch +4. So he could have kept the advantage down. And actually, you could argue, well, it's only a pawn. White doesn't even have to take a rook here, but let's just take the rook anyway now. Rook e1. But is there much hope for black in this endgame position here, in this endgame scenario? These two pawns down here, and that means that really black can't take this pawn. The white king's going to just head for d4. He can even play e7 just to tease black. He can't take that pawn, and if he can't take that pawn, then it's quite trivially won, I think. White can just play rook e4 and then march the king over to harass the c pawn. So that'll be trivially won. So I just thought it was visually impressive, light square combination and light square play generally. White's playing this game. So the final position after e7 and black resigning, so it shows the prelude to tactics on a particular square strategy, light square strategy. Comments or questions on YouTube? Thanks very much.